All right, we are back in the Detroit is Different podcast studios. It is a hot summer day. Hot summer day in July, cancer season. And, Detroit summers always bring something very interesting. Detroit summers are always filled with people outside, people playing. You hear kids and ice cream trucks and all types of culture. And when we think of culture is the essence of which I started Detroit is different. And the essence at which I started Detroit is different when I think of dance, when I think of movies, when I think of music, when I think of really expressions. Actually, the way Detroiters walk is kind of artistic in the grand scheme of things. But in capturing that and making sure you can take what is given as culture, it takes the right representation. I've interviewed a couple at this point in time of my attorney, Stephanie Hammonds. I've interviewed Howard Hertz, also Daniel Hoops. I'm pretty sure Hoops is going to come back. We're going to get some more attorneys. But when it comes to being an entertainment attorney, walking alongside black people in the city of Detroit, adding to the culture and in the mix of the culture, you're definitely going to bump into this man, Attorney Gregory Reed. Attorney Gregory, how are you today?
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor just to be in your presence to be a part of this show, and the title of it, Detroit is Different.
Thank you. I generally always start this whole Detroit is Different journey off with your family and your ties to Detroit. So are you a first, second, third generation Detroiter? How did your family get to Detroit?
Well, my grandmother migrated from Macon, Georgia.
Okay.
And they were entrepreneurs and the Warmans, and they still have certain street signs and things of that nature in Macon area after that name. And they migrated to River Rouge, Michigan. And a number of them were on the E-course side, became in the city policemen in that part of it, of the community. And my grandfather died young and owned property. And my grandmother really was more of an entrepreneur. She never worked per se, but she worked based upon the property that he left her with, as in terms of owner and collecting rent. And then she also had a grapevine, and she made wine. And then she also knit and crochet. And so she was always self-independent.
Okay. So this is a very interesting story, just in the mix of a lot of people that made their way in the Great Migration from the South. Detroit this area is filled with black folks from primarily Alabama.
Yes.
Mississippi.
Yes.
In Georgia.
That's correct.
So was it other family members that made their way up this way, or was it kind of like your family laid a flag in the ground and kept it moving, or how did that happen?
Well, they kept it moving. Then part of my father genes were the people that migrated from North Carolina, and a number of them ended up migrating part to E-course in Chatham, Ontario, Canada. And his part, they own a store. And so then they were a part of an entrepreneurial, and they identified with a lot of the self-determination values as well during that time with the Muslims. And so then they picked up a lot of self-determination items, and they were high complexion, and my mother was dark complexion. And so then that took a little doing for them to cross over.
Yeah, I can imagine.
No, but I'm very I can speak that way as I have evolved in understanding life and the complexity of it that we ignored. So then, of course, they didn't want those two to get together, but they came together at the time.
So with this, as we talk about the store ownership and everything in River Rouge, and River Rouge itself, and that whole downriver area, has a culture to its own, even to this day. It's like that
true.
is like that whole Southwest Detroit, Black Detroit. As we think about, as we think about the dentists, the doctors, the attorneys, the store owners. That
true.
community was really close knit.
I'm glad to see that your awareness level is there to understand that a lot of people don't know. See, River Rouge was almost like a suburban community in a lot of ways because they had their own hospital.
Yep.
The Black Hospital, the Sunby Hospital, Dr. Mitchell, them, and they had their own library. They had their own theater as well. Like we have that problem within Detroit today, a theater. They had their own theater. Then you could play sports, organized sports with the other schools, or the majority of the white schools, but they started off boxing and wrestling organized from the first grade, and they played organized sports with uniforms and traveling in the fifth grade. A lot of people don't know that in boxing. And when we moved to Southwest Detroit, we crossed over without underhandedly to stay in the River Rouge mix. Because they had organized sport. They played sports at night in the lights at night. None of the Detroit schools even had that. And so you learn how to compete and be disciplined. And then they even send their kids. During school year, they had an organized camp in the 7th and 7th grade, where you go to what a camp, I don't even know where it is, called Green Pasture. And so they had a lot of good culture balance of the tight-knit community, and then they had their own stores out there as well on Visitor Road and part within the neighborhood. And so you were really grounded, but it was after you got through to a certain point of school is really what hands can nurture you further through a education or a college institution or another career. Because during that time we didn't have that many people. Then most of those people, they either worked at Great Lakes Steel or Ford Motors as during that time. And so education was not on the horizon, so to speak. So my sister became the first to go to Central State, Ohio.
Okay, how many siblings did you have?
Oh, I had we still do. I have two other siblings, and the family is almost like miracle kids. After when I say that, and I just do not say that lightly, because I'm amazed when I look at it and how proud what happened, even when my mother and father parted ways. What we all did with ourselves. Like my sister, currently she's a principal. She'll be retiring soon at Pastor. My brother, he lives up in Saginaw, and he's the only person, and his daughter are the only father and daughter that's in the Hall of Fame in this state.
Hall of Fame for what?
In basketball. They were both All-Americans. And he was the Saginaw College, before it became a university, first All-American. Okay. He led the nation in scoring, and then he became a court counselor in the juvenile system as well. And then his daughter was Miss Basketball, as well as was invited to the Olympics when she was only in the 9th grade. And the politics do not let high schoolers into the basketball arena in the 9th grade, and so she was invited out twice. She runs a tutorial counseling program today in the city of Detroit, but she was Miss Basketball of the state, and she's inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And so then with the three of us, there are 10 degrees just with the three of us.
Wow. What did your mom and dad do, and how far in school did both of them go?
Oh, they both graduated from high school.
Okay.
And my mother had a rough time, and then eventually she became a licensed nurse as well.
Okay.
And so it was just, so I look at it, I say each one of us, how we put our lives together, end up doing something of giving back to the community. And so that's been our track record of the family. And my sister, her school is rated by the governor of the state as one of the top competing schools as in a low income area that compete with the high economic school. And her school been on CBS. She gets, as well as like perfect attendance. She knows how to work with the families. And she's at Pastor on Pembroke. And so we have learned to work and give back. And that's been, and we do it quietly. We don't have to do a lot of fanfare, and we just do it.
Now, in reference to your father, what did your father do?
He was definitely he worked in the factory, and then he also picked up ways on entrepreneurial skill.
Now, you said your grandmother, and that's 3 generations, and that's your mom's side, I'm guessing, that was here for 3 generations. Your father's side, what led your father's family here to Detroit, or did he just come to Detroit independently?
No, they came as a family.
Okay.
And they set up shop over in Ecorse.
Okay.
And then he set up a store on Saliat Street.
So entrepreneurship on both sides of your family was taking place between your father's side and your mother's side, as far as running the store, selling goods, especially if a grandma was making wine and stuff.
I picked it up differently, Kai. I came home when I was one day when I was 8 years old, and I asked my mother for some money, to be honest. And she said she didn't have any, and I thought that was strange. I said, "You don't have any money?" And so what happened? I went out. That's when my entrepreneurship started.
Okay.
And I went out and actually sold free press at night. See, the free press used to deliver evening and day. I sold free press at night, and then later on, then I set up my own shoe shine box. I've made it out of wood and everything, because I became more self-oriented about doing for self.
And that's at 8 years old?
At 8 years old.
Okay, one second. Now, I do have to ask this. At 8, what were you trying to buy? Like candy?
No,
or?
just have some money.
Just have some money yourself.
Right, because see, when I was 9 years old, where I live at now is when I made a decision, because we moved around the city. Now, I'm not going to give you something like it's just all sugarcoated. We moved around quite a bit. And when I was 9, I decided that I was going to live in the neighborhood that I live in today, in Union Village.
Okay.
And I can't even get over that at 9 years old, I made a decision like that. And then when I got out of college, when I was in my 20s, I bought the house during that time to live in the house that I'm living in still today. And so what I have learned from the process, the entrepreneurial and your outlook, is about a vision and a plan and how you manifest that. And a lot of us can have a dream, but we don't set up a plan and how we're going to implement that dream.
So when you talk about dream and implementing the dream, I'm definitely going to fast forward a little here on to, through high school, entertainment law. And then I'm going to come back to high school, because I want to know what high school you went to, what college you went to. But did you ever have it in your mind at a younger age that you'd be working in and around entertainment?
Well, I got there from another perspective. I was in engineering at Michigan State. No, I did not have that. How I got into that area was I was around all these All-Americans and I saw that they needed help. And that was Bubba Smith,
Mm-hmm.
Clint Jones, Gene Washington, a number of others, and I was a freshman, and they befriended, and I befriended them, and they befriended me, and there was only 260 something blacks at Michigan State during that time before they had the rush after the riots. So what happened? I said they need help, and here I am in engineering, and that field was not developed at all about entertainment law and sports at all. It was not even looked upon as a profession, nor did it looked on in terms of a particular area as a specialty.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have the persons that are listening give us some context. They start saying, yeah, this just didn't happen. No. So what happened then, after following them, and then they gave me exposure. I used to go stay with them. Here I am. I'm still at Michigan State. They were getting into a whole new area
Mm-hmm.
of their career in sports, because
in professional sports.
Mm-hmm.
So like as different players were going professional,
They were not exposed to that arena either. They didn't know. They didn't have nobody to take care of them or direct them.
I would argue that a lot of guys now
Still
don't.
That is correct,
And probably a majority.
You're right, and so you're 100% right. And so what happened? Someone to teach them how to handle themselves, how to handle their resources. Now I'm just learning a little bit of economics.
Yeah, you're basically taking some of what you knew from paper routing on up from 8 years old, a little bit of what you knew from school, a little bit of what you learned from your grandmothers,
That's good.
and telling them, hey, I think
you should do this.
I don't think that you should buy 7 cars, Mr.
Yeah,
Smith.
You're right. So you do
Maybe one.
You connect the dots very well, and so what happened? Because you listen to anyone's story, is this person connecting the dots? And I'm just connecting the dots, just like you just put together.
Uh-huh.
And so, because I don't know, I just learning, because we all give what we come from a reference point.
Okay. Now this is the other strain of not just athletes, but just a lot of, but especially athletes. And we even spoke to Joe Louis, as I'm familiar with some of his family here too. But athletes become athletes, and now they didn't know they had so many cousins that come up out the woodwork, and cousins that just got a baby, diaper money and this, that, and the other. As these new expenses present themselves.
Yeah, they do. But,
were you assisting in the whole, because like I think you can become a trusted resource more than just like even the common roles of what a on paper business manager does are always they can spill over depending upon the know-how, the wisdom, the experience, and the life situations of an artist.
Yeah, that comes about. One thing that I have taken a lot of pride in, what I don't know, I research.
Uh-huh.
And so what I found out that in that area, the same experience that even LeBron has had, he groomed those guys. They didn't know nothing, but he trusted them.
Yeah.
And that's all. And so the trust factor is a very key factor, and not to betray the trust. That's why different people have stayed with me for like 13 or 16 years because of that factor. Mm-hmm. And so in that area, which you did not know, I became the youngest guy in the country when I went to law school. I was the youngest guy in the country as an agent in the United States to represent 10 players.
Wow. And what year is this?
This is the year of 70. I came out in 74. So this is like in 72.
72. So this is really as we talk about it, like at the apex of new worlds happening. I mean, right now, he's infamously known as a murderer, but this is like some of the ascension of O.J. Simpson.
Oh yeah, it's O.J. My roommate, bless his soul. See, Michigan State did not want to play another black quarterback. My roommate was ambidextrous. He could throw it left and right and kick punt. His name is Jack Pitts. Yes. And they didn't want another black quarterback after Michigan State had went to the Rose Bowl. So they ended up so they put my roommate they would make quarterbacks halfbacks. Defensive back. So he ended up breaking his neck tackling OJ. During that time. So
let me say this: if you watch the tapes now, as far as like his political views and possibly his personal life, I can't speak for Orenthal James. But as a football player,
that's another story.
He changed a lot of the roles for it, because I would definitely think he may have symbolized, like, through advertisement and so many other things, what could happen with an athlete's life.
That is correct. So that became the point where I started to get in it, because those guys brought me, you see how I got the entertainment.
Other ones.
They brought me that platform of representing various players. And then I went into Broadway productions.
Wow.
Then it got into entertainment. See, I represented 4 Broadway productions.
Which productions were those?
Those were the Amos Behaving, Your Arm Short to Box, The Guy, Colored Girls, The Wiz. So I've been very fortunate that I dealt with the cream.
Now,
because they didn't have anyone that was in that area.
Now, those personalities are just so different, I can just assume, from my understanding of the drama world versus the sports world. So
you got a good point. They are. There's the different mindsets. You picked up pretty well. Athletes' mindsets are naive. Why? Because they've been taken care of, insulated. On the artist and entertainment side, there's a lot of paranoia.
Yeah.
And the paranoia comes from because so many people have misrepresented and said, I'm going to put your name in bright lights, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And they have run into a lot of broken promises.
Yes.
So I already know the difference in terms of how to relate to the different mindsets. And so when you understand that, and then you come off in a genuine fashion, they would understand and relate with you, and that's why they would stay with you. And that's how different individuals have stayed with me, just like Thomas Hearns, Anita Baker. All these people have stayed because understanding the culture and their makeup, can you be relied upon or be counted on? And that's how I have had those different types of relationships, and never was a person that wanted to be out in front.
Okay. Now, as you talk about the not being out in front, your image becomes more out in front as people have spoken highly of you, working with you.
That's true.
It kind of becomes one of those things of like, so what do you use? I use this. I use that. I work with Attorney Reed. So
that's how it happened. But other than that, as opposed to a lot of people wanted to go into the area, and they think that's what it is. But I'm a business oriented person. I don't want to be there. And just like when I mentor Stephanie Hammonds, her personality was the same persona as mine. We just enjoy taking care of the person more than anything, because we felt that if you handle this person right, they can make a difference. That is really the key. Now
let's go a little bit through the other journey. Let's go back. High school. What high school did you go to?
I went to Southwestern, and yes,
okay.
Southwestern. We lived on over, and I was living I was staying in Southwest Detroit. Then we moved on the east side.
Okay.
And I used to catch the bus from the east side
Oh man, that was dangerous.
to Southwestern High School, and that was, and I'm glad I did because Southwest, yeah. I used to get up around about 4 or 5 in the morning in order to get to school for a reason.
Time out. Repeat what you just said for everyone sitting around thinking to themselves, I don't feel like going to class today.
Oh yeah, I used to get up 4:30 and 5 in the morning.
4:30 in the morning.
Well, I had a reason because we were catching the bus. The other side, there were no cars like you can catch a car and drive.
What part of the east side were you staying?
I would stand at the edge or where the black bottom is.
Oh, okay.
I learned a lot about the east side because we stayed on the east side one time, other time before. But that was black bottom when I was learning what black bottom was during the time.
What buses were you take? Did you have to do like 3 transfers?
Oh, no, I take the Verner.
Okay.
Downtown.
Okay.
You're really getting in the grits. and did I get a transfer and catch the 4th Street bus down 4th Street and get off? But I had a reason for getting up at that time as well because I had so much pride that I didn't want to carry a lunch. I used to put away all the milk for the whole school to get a free lunch.
Wow.
That's how I earned my lunch.
That's real. Hey, that's good. And I can imagine the 4th Street back in the 60s was hard because there was so many, I can imagine it was like, what's that, like factories at every corner. They were probably pulling the string the whole way through.
How you know that?
Just because it's still industrial. And I assume back then people were like, I'm not driving to work. I'm going to take the bus.
No. So all that work ethics still stays with me today from 8 years old.
Okay.
And it's the work ethic. See, one thing I have learned that a lot of times people think you're successful in a way, but it really is the discipline. The discipline and not being distracted. And I took that same, see, we easily get distracted.
Yeah.
Even today as professional, we have so much social media distractions.
Yeah.
And so I have learned to harness that. Then I say, well, you're distracted. You got to tell yourself you're distracted. You got to prioritize. You got to put your priorities together. Now, this is still goes on today in terms of knowing how to implement and fulfill whatever it is as your objective.
Okay, now college after high school, which hopefully you were definitely not taking the bus like that in college. Hopefully you could just walk to class. But where did you go to college?
I went to Michigan State, and that was based upon I didn't want to go. I wanted to go there. I really wanted to go to U of M at first, but I'm glad I went to Michigan State.
I know people that went to state right now are like, what? You wanted to go to U of M first?
Oh, yeah. But see, U of M had such an elitist. When a guy came to recruit at Southwestern, I literally cried because they say, we'll let Mr. Reed in any department at U of M except engineering. Because they had a 5-year program, and they said, no, I don't think you can make it. So I went to Michigan State to go in engineering based on Miss Whitley. She wanted me to go to Hampton, and I didn't know anything about Hampton. See, I was class president. I did well in high school. I finished number 3 out of the whole class body.
Okay.
In terms of academics, and she got me money and everything, and I went to Michigan State. So I did well. I won vocational. I had a special curriculum they designed for me. I didn't have a college prep. I had part college prep and I had vocational. So I was good with my hands. I won a lot of state awards in terms of how to machine lathe.
So your mind was just straight up in engineering then?
Well, it could be, and I just learned science was more. I was more attracted to.
Okay.
The point that that a lot of people know. The reason why I write books, to be honest about it, because the weakness that I had was writing. And whatever I feared, I have always learned to confront, and I would challenge myself. So that's how I got into writing books.
Ain't that something? That's an interesting way to dive right on in. Now, on campus, was it the fact that the other guys knew that your brother was an athlete? What drew the athletes to you as far as somebody they could listen to and a voice of reason?
Well, that's a good point. You're pretty good. Well, first of all, I generally would hang in that area. One reason, because I played sports, but I was not as good as my brother. My brother was exceptional. He played varsity football and basketball in the 9th grade.
Wow.
And so I set a record. I was on reserve.
Did he play against? Because like I'm thinking era and everything. Did he play against Cliff Russell or Spencer Haywood? Or
yeah, you're right. You got pretty.
Okay. Okay.
You must have been born before.
I just like Detroit history, especially Detroit Black history, and I hear these stories because I went to Northwestern. So
the Fred Snowden area.
Yes. Okay. So so because I hear all these stories about Northwestern was better than all of them.
John Mayberry.
I don't know if it's revisionist history. And Kurt Jones and stuff.
Kurt Jones. I played against Kurt Jones.
Yeah, they say Kurt Jones was
the
like
best.
Jumping off. Like they were like Kurt Jones.
I'm glad you know that name.
And definitely we got to say.
He just
like
needed
the
support.
Stories I hear about him and how good he could play basketball.
Yeah. Oh yes. Well, I played against Kurt back when we was 12 or 13 at Crunk Recreational Center. When I was Southwestern Southwestern, they used to bring us over, so we were exposed to sports. So my game plan was that I was going to go to college either by sports or academics. And my brother excelled in the sports.
Okay.
And I did not excel as
well as your brother.
As my brother.
Yeah.
so it's here I am playing on reserve, and he's young. He was younger than I am. Okay. And he's playing varsity.
Wow.
Football and basketball.
Because I assume those days going up against people like Chokwe and Cliff Russell and Spencer Haywood. Like the stories I hear about Spencer Haywood and Kurt Jones, I wish I could have been alive to see them play in high school. They make it seem like they dropped like 60 points in a half.
Yeah, because they end up going towards Southwestern and Persian. They end up playing each other going towards the state final. And that when my brother was on the team playing against Spencer.
Oh man, I never knew that Southwestern was the team that they were facing going to. So that means your brother's team had to be real good then.
Oh, he was good, and him and a guy named Charles Herb. Southwestern, when I was in the 11th grade, they brought me up from the reserve, and we went to the state finals in Southfield. We were not prepared because we were one of the few schools went all the way up to Lansing. Now I'm in 11th grade, and they playing in the state. And the guys stayed up late at night playing cards and not recognizing getting rest. Southfield came and put a whooping on Southwestern. And they were not prepared. It's just like exposure, grooming a person, getting them ready. You're in a whole different lane of life. It's the same way in terms of our community. When you get into another lane, you got to start doing a different preparation, and you got to do a different implementation. You cannot do what got you there. You have to improve that on what you got.
Yeah, I've definitely heard a story or two about Michael Jordan's days as a Chicago Bull and some hard partying, but still the next day still being able to go out
and do something.
Wipe them clean. Him,
yes.
Isaiah Thomas, Lawrence Taylor. But yeah, all of this stuff. I love sports and just the competitive nature of it. And like what you say, it's like the mental, because sometimes you can.
That's what it is.
The mind, as they say, your basketball IQ, especially with basketball and boxing. Boxing especially, like if you know more, you really can outwork guys I had maybe a 20-minute conversation the other day about to me, it's like Michael Moore should have beat George Foreman that day, but I just think George Foreman just knew more about the angles in boxing. I mean, he was an old man, but he knew more about. Shout out Michael Moore, Detroit, in the house. But,
no, but that's interesting. See, I've been blessed, been able to work in different areas, and I see how you put together in terms of the mental capacity and how you integrate the physical with the mental. See, and see, I represented the only lawyer in the United States to represent 6 world champions. And so to see, you can see now, you start to say, what is, I have evolved in terms of the industry and where things were at different times.
Yeah.
That's all was happening from Broadway plays when there were no black touring companies. You can't say you working in the play area.
Yeah.
So then the boxing has changed. So because then I helped Emmanuel Stewart to help build. He went and recruited me when he was starting off Crunk, and then I had the first book in this country on negotiating contracts for athletes and entertainers. I wrote the first book promoted by the White Bar, the American Bar Association. I was the only reference that they could cite when they had their first entertainment forum that was set up in America.
Never knew this. Never knew on both fronts. I knew you worked with Emmanuel Stewart in most of the camp, but I never knew he sought you out based on that book. But that makes
he was.
Emmanuel Stewart made a lot of good business decisions. The more I hear about it,
yes, he did. He was business oriented, and what happened? He met me at a party, and I went there, and it was at Shoreline East apartment on East Jefferson, and I don't
even know Shoreline East. Where is that at? I'm thinking to myself, Shoreline East.
The Shoreline is next where you got just before you get to Jeffersonia.
Oh, I know exactly where that's at. Okay. Now I know exactly where that's at. Okay.
And so when the community was our community was a lot of tightly knitted, and we had more organizations doing certain things that were out there, like Irma Henderson had organization, all these, and so we learned, like even around those type of people, Joanne Watson learned around by being around in those circles. That's how we got where we are today, because we were groomed and nurtured. It was a more perpetuating situation than fragmented. So what happened? I'm there, and Emmanuel had all these boxers. They were amateurs, and he wanted to groom them to the next level, and he was just changing over. So he saw me at this, and he knew I had the book, and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." So what he did, he took me out. He would sit down with me. He was analyzing. He would assess, and then he got a feel of comfort, and so he met with me, sit down a couple of times, kept doing this, and then he called his wife out during the time, and we went to lunch at the Majestic on Woodward Avenue.
Okay.
And he had a brown paper bag. He pushed the paper bag, and he pushed it on his side, and his wife was there. He said, "This man gonna take care of our life," and because he had went through a process with me. Then after he had tried me out for the next couple of years, then he turned 18-year-old Thomas Hearns. He said, "Tommy, he's going to take care of you." So then that's how I got into the boxing arena.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up representing these various champions, because then people start, "Oh yes, but Thomas was not the first champion that I represented. Hilmer Kente became the first champion. I represented him." Yeah. But before them, what happened, they got in, they were going to put on the world championship here, and and the IRS was going to stop the fight. So I ended up representing Pepino Cuevas as the champion, fighting Thomas Hearns.
Wow.
So I had to go and resolve that whole matter, or they were going to stop the fight, and that's how the fight took place, because I was doing the work behind the scene in order for them to release the whole thing that the IRS had stopped.
Now of this, because I know basketball was something that you were into, and you saw boxing at Crunk and everything like that.
Good point.
Were you a boxing fan of at the time, or were you just was?
I was a business person understanding sports and contracts.
Oh, okay.
And I was able to put that together, but I didn't know. Yeah, but then I ended up getting into the basketball. I was the only agent in America, black, that represented a lottery pick, and that player was a product of my brother's. His name was Mark Macon.
Okay.
And that's how, because see, my brother was, before the Fab Five came, my brother's the one that created the Fab Five. A lot of people. And you say, well, how's that? Because he was before Chris Webber and all the other players came, Jalen and all them, he had he had 5 freshmen he took to the state finals in high school. Okay. And that's where the word, it was coined.
Okay.
He had 5 freshmen in the state finals at U of M on the court. And the announcers say, he got the Fab Five.
Wow.
And that was way before that came. See, one thing that I admire about my brother is that we look at things from a mental and a spiritual point of balancing a person. Mm-hmm. And so those players that was freshmen, that was Mark Macon, a guy named Sean, I don't remember the other guy, and some of those, 2 of those, his players are doctors today.
Wow.
See, we would give them gold journals books. I got my brother with gold journals in terms of spiritually balancing a person before you put them out there on the court. This is something that this gentleman is doing on the east side now in the boxing. Before those kids could get in the ring, they have to do all their homework. Mm-hmm. They have to get the mental part together.
Yeah.
And so this is something that a lot of times we don't look at. We just think that just go out there and just practice and apply yourself, but you have to get that individual. Just like when I even deal with my clients and taking them in different areas, you got to get them balanced, and you do it slowly and consistently over a period of time, and then they start picking up a different dimension on how to handle themselves.
So with this all being said, and this just was the high school sort of college discussion, law school. Mm-hmm. How did you say, all right, going to law school? Because first off, even just taking the test to get into law school, as my little sister is getting ready to take that test now, you have to have a strong presence of mind, as the test it's not like right or wrong. It's way more you get into I'm gonna coin this from a great friend, brilliantly intelligent, of attorney Todd Russell Perkins, of like, law is like a strange bird. So like you have to know how it moves, you know?
Yeah, it is. That's interesting. Well, as I indicated, I started off in engineering.
Uh-huh.
Now, how did you get over in this other area? And I started representing these players.
Yeah.
But before then, I had an idea I wanted to represent these players.
Okay.
I really started off in a different lane. One was the engineering aspect. And what happened, I thought I was insecure. And I started needed more education to ground myself. And I thought, see, I may have degrees, but I'm not an advocate of degrees. I got 4. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I'm not an advocate. I'm an advocate of how you train your mind, whether it's hands or whether it's being creatively, and apply yourself. Mm-hmm. That's how we won these state awards. Like was in the vocational area. See, I know nothing about engineering. And you said, well, how did you get in engineering, dental law? Well, I looked into one ads. See, you said the classified sections where we look up. And I saw seeing that was a high-paying job And I said, I'm going to go into engineering. When I saw they were making like $10,000, 12.
Mm-hmm.
See, a person in those days was making $3,000, $4,000. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to take up engineering. That's how I got into engineering, through my vocational and looking at things like that, and to classify. Always looking ahead, not where things are in a present moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I deal with life that way. And so when you take those tools, that basic, that way,
Mm-hmm.
and then so then you say, well, how did you get into law? What happened? And I wanted to further myself. Then I got my master's in management science in Michigan State, and then I started thinking about law in terms of, because I was going to get into patent law. You have the engineer degree, law degree.
That makes sense.
Now you see the dots connected.
Yep.
Thank you. So it got some sense to this stuff. So what happened? Because I always like to distinguish whatever I'm doing. I don't like to follow the mass. I seek to make change, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were not any black patent lawyers, that many. There were only one or two, one in Detroit, a guy named Benjamin Greer, I believe. And I would say, well, you're going to distinguish yourself. Then I backed away from that. I tell you why I backed away. Because I said that you have to be a realistic person. You can be unique, but you have no food on the table. Because how many black people are going to be coming to you? They're going to be inventing something, or actually dealing with that area of patents. And I said, oh,
well,
no.
you definitely had a lot of foresight there, because I agree.
Right. So I would have been starving still today.
Mm-hmm.
And I said that you don't want to work in the corporate environment.
Mm-hmm.
That was my selection. Although I had the highest paying offer to come out of law school, didn't I have the best of grades? But they looked at my background. I got the highest offer out of all the students, and there were 15 blacks that started. Only 2 of us came out on time. Mm-hmm. And so then during that time, so I said, I shift gears. Then I went and applied to medical school.
Wow.
And so it was funny. I was selected to be at Michigan State to be the first enrollee in their medical school, myself and Diana Ross' sister. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know Rita, but which one?
Oh, she has a sister. She's a doctor. She may have stopped practicing. She finished.
Okay.
So no, they have a sister and is a doctor, and so what happened when I got the letter that I can get admitted in law school? I went over there to the Michigan State and walked over, and I told them that they can give that position to someone else that's going to use it, because I'm going to law school. Because I was tired of science.
Yeah.
That's what happened. That's why I shifted over, because I figured that I could make a difference in the law area. That's why I thought I could create more impact, helping people. And so I gave away the medical field in order to opt into the law field.
And since then, you've been running with it ever since.
That's
so,
it's
now,
strange, yeah.
Now, you start off with a lot of the sports, then you end up into theater. How I kind of have engaged and interacted with you is music based.
I did got it. That's true.
Just as an overview, when it comes to contracts and intellectual property, so for the people listening to this, like I always say, and people always ask me, like, you have an attorney, attorneys cost a lot of money, and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, first off, it's intellectual property. It's an idea. So it's about creating an idea, protecting an idea, and then seeking to license that idea, and then how that idea will be used. And even in that what I in my mind is a simple explanation of it all. I guess let me break it down even further. A friend of mine wants to do something in animation. So I said, okay, when you write out the animation and you're not going to be the actual artist to make the animation, you want to make sure you're clear about the terms at which you pay, which in a contract, pay is known as consideration for the character that is created. And then also that you are given all rights to these characters. And then this is where we get into like where I was like, this is where you may need an attorney. Because if I draw Mickey Mouse and then Mickey Mouse's tail is swirly, and then that same person takes it and draws it where the tail is straight, like now we have to get into like, you know, writing out through arbitration if it's like through reasonable through reasonable means through arbitration, if it can be looked at this likeness being taken and manipulated or something like that. And then you even have to go through the whole fact of, do you have the wherewithal to go through court and the litigation or the arbitration or, you know, the legal battle that may ensue if you want to protect what it is. Now, that's a big soliloquy to get to a little bit of what you found are some of the difficulties, because I know me working with artists, the most difficult thing always is that oftentimes, this is a generalization, artists could care less about anything other than creating art. With that being said, they rely on a lot of people to have what they perceive is their best interest in mind all the time, but that best interest can shift depending upon opportunity to opportunity to opportunity. How have you found it working with a lot of artists that may have never looked at, read, don't even know how to start reading a contract, but still know they need an attorney?
Well, it's a very good assessment and analysis. It's the same approach that I have had. A lot of times artists are a little bit slower, but it's the same way I have been blessed to work with certain iconic figures in terms of the same idea of bringing them along and educating the person in a methodic way. And actually that they know that you have your best interest, but sometimes when people want to rush and get it, I don't care, but you know, they want to ignore that area. But you cannot ignore it, because you're really going to have problems and issues eventually that will come up. And so I take them on a journey in a different way, just like when a young man may come with me with a CD or whatever, and I tell them, and what I do, I shift their mind. I said, you, what you holding in your hand, you don't recognize you handling a multi-million-dollar product as a company. You're really a CEO. You're not only an artist. So I take them into that space, as opposed to saying, oh yeah, this music is good, such and such. I have to give them and start to shape that they're really a business person with that product much more, and that they become more sensitized to that as a business part along with the creativity. And so you have a small minority of those that figure it out, in which you can just name them, you know, just like Jay-Z that figured it out. You got P. Diddy that figured it out. See, you have to see, they would never be in the space that they're in, but people hear their names but never recognize that someone had to direct them, or them by them watching others to start to shape that this is a very serious thing. They could be all that, but they got to take care of that area. Other than that, they don't have the longevity nor the staying power in order to keep them out there. And and so all those skills of understanding that, just like when I say athletes are naive and artists are more paranoid, that they start to see and to accept a little bit much more that they're going to be like the person on the street eventually if they don't take care of this area.
Now, you said looking at it as if you're a business person, which is a very great, plain way of having an understanding. Tyrone Bradley, that's my homie. Learned a lot about a lot of stuff from Tyrone, you know. But he always says the music business ain't got shit to do with music. And the older I get, the more that statement makes more and more sense. The machine needed behind an artist to be seen, especially in today's culture. As right now somebody's negotiating to book me for something, and I'm straight up telling them, like, look, I think I love my stuff, but I still don't know what type of return on investment you're going to get if we do this venture together. And I'm speaking from the perspective of I've been a business person and I've bet on myself and what could be reasonable. And these are the things that I think you should do, even though this is your money. Now, the music industry right now is shifting big time. Streaming music,
yes,
the value of music, how it's seen. Right now, you have all these different streaming platforms, and you're going by and relying on how, you know, what this company that's streaming your music is telling you. You know, this is how much they're going to pay you. I mean, how do you really audit Spotify? How do you audit this information? And I've been given some information about, like, you know, sometimes you can get these reports and go through and see how many streams. But because all of this stuff is in the cloud, which really means it's somewhere in a server, it's somewhere in a serving farm for Spotify or Pandora or iTunes Music or Google Play Music. You know, and then also on top of that, nobody even can quantify what the value of a stream song is. If I stream a song do I have to stream a song for the whole 3 minutes the song takes, or what if I stream a song for 30 seconds? Does that cost? Does that count? If the streaming platform sells advertising on it, like Spotify or Pandora, me as an artist, am I supposed to have rights to some of the money that Spotify have for playing? Like, if they play a commercial right before my song plays, am I supposed to get more money?
All this is negotiable anyway, and the industry is in this whole different evolution process where people are still learning off of each other at this thing, because this is a whole new creation that has evolved. But you have to be able to have some input in the economics, because everything that a lot of times people create, you have to look at how do you monetize it. Monetization, it has some value, but you got to look at it. You cannot ignore that, because eventually over a period of time, those same rights will come up and someone's going to be licensing or selling it. If you don't have no input, you're not even at the table. So you might as well start to get a hold of whatever the information that you have and get some grounding and have some interest in it. And because that's what happened to name, image, and likeness over a period of time that people never thought about. They just sign away different things. And that's exactly what I did, really, for even Mrs. Parks, is just to help her to understand the name, image, and likeness of what the value of who this great person was.
And it's tapping right into a person's social capital. And as we get into this, closing out, and we definitely have to have you back to talk about more what you do, but you're also in business. You lead a lot of independent things. Some of your work goes into event marketing. Yes. It goes into publishing yourself, like books. it's gone into your investment in other ventures and things that people may or may not even be aware of. You have historical collections.
Yes.
You're not just the sitting up reading contracts and saying yay or nay type of attorney either. Now, your own personal ventures right now. What's inspiring you to keep moving and specifically do a lot of these ventures on behalf of preserving the traditions of Black history and the ethics and principles of what now people, Black excellence?
Well, I look at my what I seek to guide or tell someone. I said, you write your own script. You write your story. And the story that I have sought to write for myself is a cultural preservationist. And that codify the entertainment, the intellectual property, the right and image, and the legacy of humanity. And so when you start to understand that denominator of what this person claims to be, is the same thing that impacts us all, and that is in terms of no great society exists or live without arts, culture, and politics. Every great civilization that has built itself over the centuries of years has got into art, culture, politics, and economics. It's no different than the Egyptians who built the Great Sphinx or the pyramids. That was art, culture, and politics. And that was a civilization no different than the Romans has built as well. Who controls those resources economically becomes self-sustaining in itself to perpetuate the existence of their people. They give them pride and esteem. Our legacy has been suppressed and tarnished and tried to set on the side because the people are so great, and to understand their greatness of who they are, they could do greater things. And so then if you keep them away from that, then you also put them in a position to be exploited and use that natural resources. And so I've always been a part of things that way, whether it's been one way or another. And so that's why the events I've created always have economics tied to it, but it also gives the people esteem that they're doing something worthy of themselves. So it's not about me or Gregory Reed. It's really about, are you making something that can impact and make a difference in humanity and society? And so a lot of times when it's misunderstood because people looking at the surface and not looking at what's there. And that's how people are being misguided, even through the media, constantly, propaganda, or it could be print or digital or audio in some form. They running a game of art, culture, and politics on their side. But then what are you doing as a part of the community to help further along the missions for people to be self-sustaining, independence, in order creating their own goodwill, so then they're not creating violence against one another? And so that's the same way I launched the car cruise. It took me 10 years to study that, to understand the economic impact and why the people would not come across 8 Mile to the city. And so then I created Cruising in the D, because that is a multi-$100 million project that they do because you get dining, you get hotels, you get merchandising, you get all different things that feeds an economy. See, it's created on the surface as cars, entertainment, but at the same time, it's a driven. So this country is built on entertainment from a business side all the time.
So cruising in the D.
Yes.
When is that occurring in 2018?
Well, cruising in the D, there's an event even this weekend as a prelude to that.
Okay.
And that is dealing with women's. Stephanie Hammonds came up with the classic women whips and wheels, and that's the first one. That's going to be at the Detroit Association Women's Club in Midtown for women to come together. Of researchers, engineers, mechanics, people just car enthusiasts, network, social work. There'll be entertainment there from 11 to 3. That's July the 7th. That'd be the first time that a group has been put together of bikers, motorcycles, cars, and people of interest, and there'll be guys there to see what's happening as well. But this is a women thing in terms of celebrating, and that would be at Detroit Association Women Club, and the reason why that is being held there because of a lady named Rosa Greggs. Rosa Greggs is a part of the community who was an advisor to 3 presidents, and she also was a great friend and advisor to Martin Luther King. A lot of people didn't know, as well as Mary McLeod Bethune, and she integrated the house on Ferry and Brush, 5461 Brush. She integrated that block. That's how Lewis Business College came and the Q House came in that block. And she restored Frederick Douglass' home. And so that's a clubhouse that's headed by President Angela Callaway from Spelman today that helps support black families and communities. And so and that was bought in 1941 and is part of a large organization out of Washington, D.C. that was founded in 1926. These were they were educated, doer type of women who were married into stable families that gave back to the community.
Cool.
And so they still do that. And so I took on that role of supporting that clubhouse the same way I supported Mrs. Parks. The first event that I held there was called Women of Courage in March, those women that redefined life in America. So the exhibit is open as well, still there. It was launched in March, and they had kept it going. It's supposed to have been a 3-day exhibit, but every time someone come in there, they see it. And so they celebrated this is the annual thing there, that exhibit, and so Joanne Watson, some of Judge Hood, and some of these other women, Geraldine Bledsoe, some of their memorabilia of who they are in that house today. So you see all these great women as well, and the doers, and then there's been integrated with internationally with over 60-something other international women like Nikki Giovanni and other people. Poets, Sonia Sanchez, and some of these great other writers, all their stories are in there as well.
Most definitely.
And so this is, and so that was launched. So each year they're doing that exhibit, Women of Courage. So these women that come out here, so even on the Car and Biker Day, they can go through as well and see the art exhibits and artifacts. So it's more than just cars, it's art and history that's been shared.
It's back to what you say, the art, the culture, and the politics all coming together.
Yeah, so it always tie in. So you have, that's July the 7th. Then we also promote marketing that day. This will be the first time in this state that we're going to be giving away 5 different health screening. That's for the August event, so they can register. And giving away tests worth between $700 or more free. to each person.
You guys doing blood work? Yeah, hey,
Yeah,
I just paid for my blood work.
Glucose,
blood work will run.
heart disease, hepatitis, HIV. We 5 different. See, most people give one exam free. We give away 5.
Yeah, that's
going to be
that's important because I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm out of pocket with it. So.
Yeah. So thank you.
Oh,
so therefore,
brother.
that's in August. The 17, 18, and 19 at Palmer Park, where we do cruising in the D, showcasing of cars, networking people coming from Ohio, Illinois, Indiana, as well as we have people from South America, Netherlands, and France that come to the car. We are, and then also McNichols Business Association are bringing up a whole stage of cars in order to join up. So we're promoting their business.
Okay.
So cruising into the D is an event, but it also helps sustain the community. And so it's not just cars and bikers. It's really health-oriented, networking, business tied, generating culture and business for the community.
Okay. So that's good to know. We got a couple different dates. This Saturday, July 7th.
Thank you.
A couple days. And then August 17th and 18th, right?
That is correct. 19th.
And the 19th. So that whole weekend, August 17th through 19th. And also July 7th. Find out more about these events. You're going to see it in the post on this Detroit is Different post for Attorney Reed.
Thank you.
And that fast forwards me to my last 3 Detroit is Different questions. But before that, what if somebody just wants to call and say, hey, I want your representation. I want your help on something. How do people get in contact with you?
313-961-3580.
Okay. All right. Now, classic Detroit is Different questions. I always ask everybody these same 3 questions. What was your very first car? What year, make, and model was the car? And what year did you get it?
My very first car was in my senior year. I went out and bought it. The family didn't have a car.
Okay.
And that was a Buick Skylark convertible.
Oh, man, you got a Skylark convertible? Okay, what year? What year?
That was 1965.
65. What year was the car?
The car was a 64.
Okay, so 1 year on you.
Yeah.
Oh, man. How long did it last?
It lasts, I would say around a good 4 or 5 years. I gave the car away to my brother. Why? It was a distraction for me at Michigan State University. And I never completed. I gave him a car away in order for me to be focused.
But you did always have that over your little brother for about 10 years, though. It's like, remember I gave you that car, man?
Yeah.
He was probably happy as ever. So if I ever interview him, he's like, my first car was his first car. So what?
You know what I never thought of until you just said it that way. That was his first car.
Where, do you remember the first place you drove when you got it?
Well, I remember a couple of things. One is that the longest distance I drove it was all the way to Montgomery, Georgia. I'm trying to think of the city outside of Atlanta.
Right outside of Atlanta.
Yes.
Let's see. What city is right outside of
Atlanta?
On
the edge. It's well known now, the city. It's amazing.
What's that one street? What city? I'm not sure. But okay. So you drove down there. What year? Do you remember the year you drove down there?
Sure. That was in 19... Jack, his roommate. Sure, that was 77. No, it was 67.
Yeah, that was before. That was pre-MapQuest. So yeah, you were really trusting.
Yeah,
you had to trust the.
You're right. Maps. And I remember almost going off a mountain because going around the mountain in Tennessee, and I woke him up. And the next distance, I went to see a young lady in Dayton, Ohio.
Hey. Dating will let you, most men have learned the city of Detroit because it's like, you get a girlfriend on the east side and then You'll soon learn the East Side.
Yes.
Soon you shall learn it. But Dayton, Ohio, yeah, I need to get somebody. I maybe need to do a Dayton is different week or something because there was a lot of funk coming out of Dayton.
Yes.
And it makes no sense. My family's from, my dad's from Cincinnati, so we always drive through.
I love Cincinnati.
We always drive through Dayton, and I think to myself, how did all these funk mans come from this small city?
Well, that and plus they were good. A lot of football teams come out of players from Dayton.
I never knew that. I just know all that funk. I mean, I know they were working with George, but it's like just in that, between who was that? You had man, my mind just went blank. But Zap. You had what you call it?
You had the
Slave,
Ohio players.
The Ohio players, and even the group that had Groove Line. What's the Heat Wave? It's like all within like a four. It was like Minneapolis with Prince or something, just out of nowhere. It's just all these people. Just coming from Dayton.
Oh yeah, it's Ohio is a very interesting place. Though.
Yeah, talk about it. I'm still a Michigan guy though. Still a Michigan guy. So second Detroit is different question. You are the DJ. It's the end of the fireworks. Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play a song. What song are you playing? 3 songs actually. That's what I always say. What 3 songs are you playing?
Well. One is that I like is I like Tupac, California.
Okay, people will be like, "Why is this guy playing California Love?" But Tupac is always you have no people have no problem with Pac anytime, especially in Detroit. So that's one. You got California Love down.
No, but I I just learned this person recently. Ariana Grande.
Okay, what song?
I don't know the song, but I like her voice now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a song from Ariana Grande, and then what? And then give me one last.
Well, you can always put "Dancing in the Street."
Martha Reed. You know what? That is one of the most voted upon songs.
Yeah, it's amazing.
From people when I ask them this question.
Let's see. I don't know, but it's really it's more to that song than a little bit in terms of the culture impact that it had, and that in terms of what went on because without even right now I'm working on a docudrama, but I wanted to get it and it ties into that era because I didn't recognize it much more how Motown and the arts and culture and politics are so interly connected. See, we just talk about Motown, but see, during that era, you had King, Malcolm, Langston Hughes, and a number of other people that was tied to this art and culture and politics.
Yeah,
and that record is tied to it even during part of even the rebellion and everything.
Yeah, most definitely.
See, so that's why I said Dancing in the Street.
And the very last question, if you could rename Woodward after one Detroiter, who would it be and why?
That's a very good one. Yeah. Well, that would be Parks Avenue.
Okay. my neighborhood would not like. We would have to keep our name over here.
They call that Rosa Parks.
I got you.
And that'd be Parks Avenue.
Okay.
It would be understood.
Okay. Hey, I'm with it. I'm with it.
So that I'm very. I take that very significant when you could name and leave some, because see, I named the first African American street, which you didn't know, downtown after a person. I'm the one that passed and got John Conyers' name downtown.
I do remember that.
That was the first. He was the first person.
I think you were also a part of. You were a part of the push to have Harold McKinney's name honored, if I believe correct.
No, I supported it, but I wasn't. Okay. But I'm ready to name in September that we get ready to have the Rosa Greg's Boulevard.
Okay.
At
Where is that going to be?
That's going to be at where this event is taking place, July the 7th.
Right in front of right where the center is. That makes sense. Association is, I should say.
Right, because that house is the only house in America with 2 front door addresses, because she was restricted to having an entrance on ferry. That's really a national tourist destination site.
Well, this was definitely a pleasure. It's many of people that I want to start getting into that, and I'm gonna have to pick your brain because I still think my godmama Orthea should have a street named after her. I just can't figure out where it would be.
Oh well, that's another story. Then you said it that way, but I would definitely say that as a matter of fact. And it's now looking at the geography that give it the significance and that it should be, and that could be on web.
Okay, I like where this is going. I like where this is going
because I know she's record there.
You Sylvia.
See, because I represented Sylvia Moore.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's how come I know that. And so there's and what she did in terms of Orthea was giving us a lot of pride during a certain era.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's a lot of time we just throw something out there, but you got to look at the cultural preservation of the impact of what's taking place during that time, and then that's how you re-educate and keep something going to another generation, and because that is the game in terms of a generation that lacks because someone is not impregnating them with those elements, and that's what other cultures do.
Yeah, I may have to do something like that even in this house. I may put up like something. I'll figure it out.
Yes.
But this was fun. We will definitely get you back as you got more stuff happening. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be here, and you're a very excellent listener, and you have done your homework. You're really born at a different time zone.
Oh yeah, man, I'm just a nerd when it comes to Detroit history and Detroit Black history.
Yeah.
Like I could have got into nuances, especially when you start talking about those Kurt Jones stories. Some of those stories, it's like, man, y'all just went to Northwestern. He could not have been this good.
Oh yes, he was. Yes, he was.
People talk about Kurt Jones basketball he was.
My brother.
Yo, if Kurt could have made the NBA.
Oh yeah, no, my brother and I, we still talk about Kurt. It's just a phenomenon.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing, and that's another reason why I swear, addressing mental challenges, addressing drug abuse challenges needs to be addressed in our community. Head on. It's a lot of talented, skilled people that can be doing so much more in talent. Oh, yeah. I just really wish I had the tape on Kurt, because I swear to God, some of the stories I hear about Kurt Jones are like, it's like Paul Bunyan or something.
Oh, yes. No, it's true. There's no exaggeration, because he was like that when he was 12, 13. No, because we were just in awe of a person that had that much control, and that could, it was he was like a gold trotter at 12, 13.
That's what I hear.
Oh, no.
I hear like basically he could have took on certain teams just 1-on-5, and I'm like, man, why don't they just elbow him?
No.
Street ball rules.
Oh, yes. It's true.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.